I'm Christian psychologist Dominic Herbst, and I want to talk to you about a very painful experience called the prodigal spouse. This is where you take the story of the prodigal son who came to his father and said, I don't want to live here anymore. I don't want to be a part of this family. I don't want to do this. I want what's coming to me, and I'm headed out. Whatever his reasons may have been, and I love to pull out many different things that are happening in that young man's heart that are causing him to go away from that which he cares about most. And you know, people wouldn't do that normally because we're not designed that way. We're designed to not be alone, but to be joined in knittedness of soul. Nevertheless, he chose to leave. Now, that can happen to a son, a daughter, a husband, a wife, where they turn their back and leave the very thing they cherish most. But they operate as if they really don't care at all for those that they leave. So that's how we put in the prodigal part, that they're leaving, they're going away, and sometimes they're leaving not necessarily geographically. You can be living with a prodigal spouse right in your home, where he or she, the husband or the wife, is so distracted, so drawn away from that which is about you, in a way that you feel that whatever love was there has died, that it's been snuffed out, that most cases you will feel that there's clearly something they're fixating on. There is something that is drawing them, and your struggle is, if I could just remove what is drawing them away, this would be okay. But you see, that would be dealing with the symptom. You see, what's drawing them away is the thing easiest for them to grab hold of, all the while they are polarized already from you. Now, that doesn't mean you're to blame for that polarization. I better explain polarization. The polar caps are two extremes, North Pole, South Pole, polarized to from one to the other, two extremes starting to depart. So it's like two parallel lines. Okay, they're polar, they don't intersect. You can live in the house with the person that you're married to, that you're really connected with, and feel that you do not have a knitted soul connection. You know what's interesting? You can actually have a knitted soul connection and be halfway around the world from that person geographically and feel closer to them than to a married man and woman in their home that are polarized. What a painful reality. Isn't it amazing that the people we love the most are the ones who have the capability of hurting us the worst? There's nothing more devastating than the one you love the most is now departing at heart from you. So understand this, their heart has departed in two situations before they have latched on to something else. They've departed first from God. They have left God at heart. Doesn't mean they're not a believer. It doesn't mean they don't have a love for God, but their expression or their desire to really serve and love God is gone. When they depart from God, they're in a position to be very, very set up to be ensnared by the enemy, and they begin to depart from you. When they depart from you, it's because they're in a place of rebellion. Now, we're all fallen creatures in a fallen world. Wherever two or three are gathered, we offend one another. So you can't be beating yourself up that it has to be you that caused all this to happen. I must tell you though, even though it's not you that caused all this to happen, you have a role in it. Not only do you have a role in it, you have a responsibility in it as to what you can do to draw that person back. Let me tell you what I mean. First of all, the role is this. Whatever it is that they may be trying to express to you in the previous years or months about what may be happening to them. Maybe they're in a major depressive disorder and they can't connect with anyone. Maybe it's something where they do not trust you for whatever reason. Maybe it's something in a painful wound of their past. And in all the scenarios I've given you, there's probably a painful wound in the past because none of us can escape it. It doesn't have to be something deep and dark. It can be something as benign as the father never talked to them about how much he loved them. That sounds like that's not a bad wound. I mean, that's just the father who he is. No, please understand. Father represents the most important man in that husband's life. Father represents the most important man in that wife's life. Same with the mother, most important woman. The impact of that person being there the way I need them to be as a child will determine a lot about how I'm able to open up to my spouse as a man, and to a woman, how she's able to open up to her spouse as a woman. And whatever is compromising any one of us going into the marriage could be the very place that the enemy will exploit. He will attack the weakest part of our soul. He will be at the place of our heart that we have not resolved with God over the years, that we have not opened up to our Savior, who is also our great physician, to heal that place. So eventually a crisis will occur in the marriage, and there will be a departure of heart that may actually be followed by a departure of the whole person in geography, where they leave the house, or you feel that you have no choice but to leave them. It could be because there's been abuse in the home and you have to leave. You hope that you can restore the marriage, but you have to leave to keep protection for you and the children. It could be leaving because that person has been drawn away by another person, and they're saying they don't love you anymore. That is so common today. But the truth is, they don't even love that other person. They're definitely drawn to that other person more than they're drawn to you, but that is not the emblem of their ability to love that person. How do I know that? Because if they're willing to violate the covenant to do so, it clearly indicates that they weren't healed before they came into the marriage with you. But then you've got to look inside, because there's areas inside you and I that we brought into the marriage that also caused us to be somewhat divided or polarized from them. We may not see it, so we don't think it's there, but just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. So it's not like we're in denial. We could be blind. If you can't see what it is that's causing the division, the divisiveness and the conflict that's occurring, that's creating the polarity, then you can't heal it. Let God heal it if you can't see it. You have to open that wound to God, but you don't see that wound. But there is a way to draw the prodigal back. It's not a guarantee that it will, but there's a way to do that. Then there's also the prodigal spouse who stays in the home, but they're not in love in the way, and I don't want to use this eros Greek word of romance, but there's not a love demonstrated from them that suggests that they're really poured into your life and really care about you. They're all about them. How many times we heard the cliche? And you may be in a situation too where you're trying to keep them connected by this intensive type of smothering control, which when we do that, if the person comes under the control, they resent us for us controlling them. And if they break free, we resent them for pulling away. But either way, the control is not a healthy way to interact in the marriage. There may be situations where they feel that they have an appetite greater for the physical realm, but you have felt, as the husband or wife, that they haven't loved you in a way that you feel comfortable there. All of these are symptoms of a deep root that is unseen to both of you. You see, it's the symptom that brings people to me to ask the question, why did my husband leave? Why is my wife not interested in me? That's the symptom. And they'll say, well, but it's a problem. Yes, it is. It is the problem for you, and that's why you came here. But the bigger problem is what's causing that. And that's what I want to make sure you know before I'm finished with this brief disclosure. When they have drawn away from you, there's something that is dividing the two of you. It will come out in script that I don't care about you anymore. I don't think you care about me. You've done things to hurt me. I do not trust you. This person understands me outside of the marriage, and they know who I am, and they love me in a way that you're incapable of loving me. I'm drawn to this person. I don't think I ever loved you. All of those voices, words, scripts will come forth. But the fact is, they don't know who they are or what they want. And the only reason why they're being drawn away is because they haven't found, even before they met you, the healing and the restoration of their soul. So all they're doing is shipping into the next relationship the very thing they haven't healed with you. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen. They could very well depart and go. How you deal with it has a lot to do with the potential of drawing them back. And first of all, I want you to understand the verse in Jeremiah. And it's Jeremiah 29, I think 11 to 13. We hear it a lot. I know the plans that I've set before you to bring you to an expected end. I don't remember all the details of the verse right now, but I want you to know the expected end. I want to speak of that. The expected end portion of that verse of promise to all believers, which was to Israel in the Old Testament, was the fact that God said there's going to be times when you're going to want a season of your life to end. The season ending doesn't mean the ending of your life. The season ending might be an ending of great pain and turmoil. You see, Israel was about to go into bondage, and He was preparing them. It's too late, you're gone. And during that time, it's important that you seek me, because I'm with you now, I'm with you when you are in the bondage, and I will be with you to lead you out. Well, what's the expected end have to do with a marriage situation that's beginning to disintegrate and erode, and now I have a spouse who doesn't seem interested, or has left the house, or is interested in someone else? Many times, the spouse who's trying to hang on to the marriage and hang on to the relationship goes very desperate. And in their desperation, create the scenario for the prodigal spouse who wants to go to a new place, a new person, a new living, a new lifestyle. And they hang on so tight that the other person tries to break free even more. And human nature says if you're willing to be there for them at all costs at any time for whatever reason, if you're willing to do that, they will treat you like the little puppy dog at their side, and they will just go on doing their folly while you take that position. So in effect, you do nothing to be a catalyst to have them count the cost of their folly. What does that mean, count the cost? What do they lose if they do this rebellion and this folly? Well, obviously, when you're operating that way in desperation, they lose nothing. They have you, and they just take you right on into it. Even if you're not with them on the nights that they may be with someone else, or out living a lifestyle that is contrary to everything that you two have stood for, you in effect are placating, you are enabling, as they say in the secular term, to do what they shouldn't be doing. Well, that's not loving them. That's loving you. See, that's not for them that you and I would do that. That's for us, because we're afraid of the reality, but they may go if I take a stronger stance. They already left. They may not have left completely from the business point of it, from divorce yet. It may be in the makings, but they already are out the door. You're not hanging on to something that is real or there. You are in effect not allowing God to end what He said He would end. The expected end means that you may be prolonging your pain. Now, you might be thinking, are you going to guarantee that I can get them back? I can't do that. God gave everybody a free will. I can guarantee your victory, your restoration, and your healing, whether they come back or not. And I can guarantee that you can accelerate their decision to come back or not to come back by the things that you do. Right now, you're not accelerating this to an end. The very thing I'm talking about here is the fact that this could have ended a month ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, 20 years I've had them. That they would allow and placate their husband, their wife in that folly and say, I'm willing to live with this. When in fact, if they would have brought it, if they would have cut it off, taken a strong, loving, this is called a perfect love, an agape love stance. An agape love, which is sacrificial love stance, says, I love you too much, husband. I love you too much, wife, to destroy yourself and destroy us as a family. You've brought us into your folly by my failure to cut you off from this. I am not cutting off the covenant. I live by the covenant that we have. But I am releasing you into the discipline of God for the opportunity for Him to bring you to an expected end. But as for today, I'm bringing this to our expected end to preserve me and this family. Why? To prepare us for what He has for us in the future. The greatest hope would be restoration with you, but if that's not something you're going to allow to happen, we're going to be restored regardless. You see, did you ever see someone on their deathbed? I have seen and watched the departure, someone very close to me, where the team of physicians and nurses were doing everything possible to bring that person back to life. How precious life. The person had lived a full life, but I wasn't ready for it to end. I don't believe they were either. I'm sure, though, they don't regret it now because they're off in glory. But there they were, working and pounding on that person. And the head surgeon turned to me and said, "Do you want us to continue?" His oxygen level is so low that there's not enough oxygen getting to the brain. We've crushed his ribs to bring his heart back to beating. So we have a beating heart in a shell that doesn't want to respond. And I said to him, "You are not prolonging his life anymore. You're extending his death. Let him go. He's already ready for the next life." Don't extend the death of a relationship that already has death in it in terms of soul communion. You see, when two souls deeply close split and divide, and there's pain because of the rejection and abandonment and even abuse, those souls die by separation because that's the definition of death. Death is not an ending. That's why it makes it so painful. It's a separation. That man that day was absent from the body, present with the Lord. Separation, soul and spirit from physical body, that's physical death. Spiritual death is to be cast into the lake of fire. Revelation 20, whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire at the great white throne judgment. This is the second death. There's a third death of proxy. The souls that do not have communion of knittedness, which is the greatest communion had between two human beings, husband, wife, father, son, father, daughter, mother, son, mother, daughter, friend, friend. Jonathan and David had it in Samuel. Jonathan loved David and was knitted with the soul of David and loved David as his own soul. That knittedness is the communion we were designed for. That was the fulfillment of when God said that it is not good that man should be alone, when God created Eve for Adam. Now, knittedness of soul is not a sexual communion, but knittedness of soul between husband and wife that leads to the sexual communion makes that gift what it was always intended to be. Completely fulfilled at every level between a man and a woman in marriage. But now those souls have died by separation. Proxy death. They are as if they don't know each other yet live together under a covenant. And you who have been left behind or hurting are to let God bring this to an expected end. To cast down the fear. Perfect love casts out fear. You must allow the perfect love of God come into you, because it's the only way the fear of that person leaving you for the rest of their lives will be assuaged. It can only be healed by the perfect love of God. 1 John 4:18. There is no fear in torment. There is no fear in love. There is no fear in love. Perfect love casteth out fear. With fear comes torment. The torment that you have is keeping you in the bondage of a dead connection. It's a dead connection. There's nobody on the other end. And the fear is, well, if I really take this stand, they'll leave for good and they'll never come back. If they do, they were never going to come back. They were never going to. Trust God on this. Don't trust my word. They're already drawn away. If they're drawn away, they're feeling as if there's nothing here. Your position of strength will be the greatest power that you've ever had with them. God draws us. God wants us to draw those around us. And let me give you this. Except a seed fall to the ground and die, it shall not bring forth much fruit. Let the seed of this once marriage fall to the ground and die, with the hope that it will bring forth fruit. Whether it's fruit between the two of you being fully restored and having a relationship that you could never have known had this ugly stuff never happened. Yes, that's one of the paradoxes of God, that if it comes back together, you will know a joy and a communion such as you have never known. Because you might have had a marriage that lasted all that time, but it could have been a bit bland. Now you will protect it. Now you will love it. Now you will pour into it, because both of you will realize what you've lost. In either case, if it doesn't even bring life into the restoration of the covenant, then recognize that what you take forward will be revealed as to what God had for you after the pain of the divorce. But I always like to cling to what therefore God hath joined together. Let not man put asunder. That includes you. And believe in the hope for the marriage, but do not live under the fleshly or sort of your own control of what happens. You've got to leave it to God. So let it die. The season ends, and then watch what God does in the transition of the next season. And you may have a situation, one of many. They may say, because they're now choking on the other person. They're now realizing, what have I done? And your immediate response might be, jump for joy. All right. Come back. No, 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 no. They must come back through a door where they are willing to walk through the pain of their childhood wounds, because those are the wounds they brought into the marriage that created the polarity. Because the truth is, you were never truly knitted. If you had been, he or she could not have been drawn away. This is when you must be strong beyond strong, and your strength will create a drawing even greater that, wow, I can trust her. If you are the wife, I can trust him because he knows, he loves me enough to know that this will just happen again if I'm not willing to walk through this. And then you get to be the one who walks in his pain with him as you are navigated through that. And you might say, well, I'll wait for that to happen, then I'll walk through mine. And I say to you, no, I challenge you, based on the truth of the Word and the Lord Jesus Christ, you walk through your pain now, even though he may never come back. Sir, you walk through your pain now, even though she may never come back. And recognize that the best way to change another person is to begin by letting God change you first. And stop expecting God to change them when he was wanting to change us. And realize that you win, 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 even though there may be pain in being separate for life and being transitioned into another situation. Your children will respect it if you have children. So let it come to the expected end so that it can fall to the ground and bring forth fruit, whether it be fruit together or fruit separate in a new life. And stop holding on to something that's making the departing prodigal spouse the object of your worship. That's idolatry, and God cannot bless a cursed vessel. Idolatry places you and I under curse. He wants to bless you, but the blessing will not come forth until you trust him and he alone, the living God. And let go of your spouse as the one that you idolize, because that is where he is saying to you, you have put too much faith in him and not enough in me. And your relationship with God, you will never regret as you look back. You will actually look at the day when all this happened and say, I don't want it to happen again or to go through it. But I now recognize what God has shown me as a result of it. And as Job said, I've seen things too wonderful to behold. I would be privileged to walk you through, whether it be DVD or online, our Restoring Relationships journey, so that you can endure, feel the perfect love of God, feel his healing, victory, and restoration, experience that, and know that he will give you the wisdom of how to move forward in this relationship.